All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a special one scheduled. We're sitting down with Cass, Strixhaven Dropout, to discuss emotions on stream. As we work through the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or just drop your question in the chat, and I will help relay those to Cass. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Cass and allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, I am Cass Hines or Strixhaven Dropouts. Um, I used to do a stream pretty regularly that had a lot of different people in the community on for some high power magic, bracket 3, bracket 4. So I'm very, very accustomed to salt because I think that saltiness comes a lot more with higher brackets. I also write for EDH Rec and Cool Stuff Inc. So I definitely have voiced some of these concerns, like salt levels, in previous articles. Today, I'm going to talk about managing emotions in general. I think this will translate to stream and other places, even like play pods. So this can be relevant to how you interact at like conventions and other things like that. It's just like very, very high level. I think in terms of accessibility, it will be mostly for streams because that's where a lot of my experience comes from. But it also works in person because I've done a lot of that as well. So let's get started. Um, Let me click my actual PowerPoint. Okay. So when thinking about how to manage emotions, the first thing that you have to clarify is yourself. You are the vehicle for your own event. If you are streaming or you are playing in a draft as a content creator or you're playing in a pod as a content creator, it is important that you manage yourself first. You can't help anybody else until you manage yourself. You can't put your mask on. You have to put your mask on the plane first before you put it on the kid. Like you have to protect yourself. And that is it really important in setting boundaries for yourself. We're not perfect. We all have things that upset us. We have things that are important to us. So it's important to set those boundaries. When you start playing, say, hey, I'm setting up this stream. I really don't like braids. I don't like sack typal decks. So I don't want to play against a braid or a turgid deck because it will actually upset me a lot. Set that boundary. There's nothing wrong with saying that for my stream, I want to be happy the whole time because you need to be upbeat. You need to be able to moderate. You need to be clear headed. And setting that boundary for yourself is literally the first thing you should be doing. Um, um, Also clarify your feelings. If you are worried about how people are going to perceive how you feel about something, that as much as I can understand that, that's extremely valid to be like, what if people don't like me or people won't want to be on my stream? The important thing is that the quality of what you create. It's not the abundance of it. If you want your stream to be successful, you want people to feel comfortable on it. They should want to come back. And you need to be able to set boundaries so that you can moderate effectively. So be clear about your feelings. You have to say, I didn't like that play, or I didn't like how you spoke to that person, and be upfront about those things. And even have consequences. If someone does something that you don't like and you've talked to them about it and they persist, clarify that boundary. If you do this again, I won't want you on my stream anymore. And just lastly, you can't help anyone else if you don't. Like I said before, you have to make sure that you put your mask on first. You need to feel comfortable in your own stream before you can make anyone else feel comfortable. Um, Rule 0 conversations. These are not just about what decks you're playing, what bracket, what power level. It's not just that. It's also including things like I don't like combo decks. I don't like infinite combos on turn 5. I don't like stacks. I don't like when players talk over me on my turn. I don't like when people dilly-dally. If you're taking your turn, make sure you have thought about what you're going to do the turn before so that we don't waste time. I don't like people who eat around my cards. I don't like people who drink liquids around my cards, right? Like, These are all reasonable things that you should be talking about in a rule zero conversation. Now, I think that before you get on stream with anyone, before you play with anyone, you need to have rule zero conversations every single time. It doesn't matter if you've played with these people before, the combination of people might change things. Always discuss whatever is on your mind for this game. If your deck is salt inducing, name that. Say, I have a deck that makes a lot of people salty. I don't know if I should play it on stream. Is everyone okay with it? It is totally okay if I don't play it. And you should set that expectation for everyone else in your stream. You should say, any concerns about your deck, any concerns that you have moving into this game, anything that I should know. And you should give them an avenue in which to tell you that is not public. Sometimes people don't have the courage to speak up and they need to do stuff privately. They need to send you a DM. Say, if you have any concerns, send me a DM, or if you want to talk about it now. It also is important that in setting up your stream, you give people an opportunity to discuss their Rule Zero conversation. This is something that I actually took from Command Zoe. She always sets up a chat before you come on stream with all the people who are going to be on to talk about Rule Zero conversations. It's not something that I did before, but I found it extremely helpful. People can bounce off ideas and kind of explain their thinking and reasoning about what they want to play. And I think that it's really important to have these conversations.
Zoe does a great job of that. I know one thing she does. You had mentioned like talking over another person when they're taking turn actions. You know, she even like spells out like how do you handle those types of things. So I think what you're throwing out there is absolutely spot on. It's really good advice.
Yeah, and I learn it from other streamers. Like one of the things, like a side note, always watch other people's streams. Don't just be on other people's streams. Even if you're a guest, make sure to observe how they conduct their streams, because that's going to give you knowledge on what you want to do. Maybe you're on a stream that you hate. Why did you hate it? Right? Think about that when like cultivating the safe space that you want to create for people to be on your stream. Because trust me, if people like your stream, they will come back on. Like I wasn't streaming for very long, and a lot of people came back to my stream. They're like, I want to be on again, because one, I was one of the few high powered streamed games, but also on top of that, I made it my business to make people feel comfortable. I am very confrontational about people's comfort. If I feel like someone is upset, I will name that. I'd be like, do you want to talk about this? Do you want to set aside time? If you don't want to talk about it now, let's talk about it later. My partner is literally someone who cannot do anything in public. I cannot call him out or anything like that in public. He will melt. So as a confrontational person, I had to learn that there are certain times where you should discuss things, and it's not always immediately when it happens. Sometimes it's a little bit after. It's not always public. Sometimes it's private. Um,
Yes, that actually brings up a question for me. If there's a disagreement as the game is progressing, is that something that you would recommend potentially taking a break and addressing in private and then coming back to the stream? Or how would you handle that type of scenario?
So I've had some conflicts on stream before. I think the Magic community is, like, I say this lovingly because I love our community, is very passive aggressive. I think a lot of times people don't like things, and instead of being direct about it, a lot of people like to ignore and avoid. The way that I prefer to address events is directly. If I realize that there is a problem, like someone has named, something like, my pronouns are she, they, and I hear a he, him, I will address it immediately. I will address it in a way that I've been taught by trans people how to address it, which is not to cuss someone out on stream, but to gently correct,
Sure.
right? If someone says he, him, I will immediately say she, her, or she said this. I will immediately correct the behavior. It doesn't mean calling someone out, it's just correcting it.
Sure.
Um, If someone is, let's say, actually upset, like upset with something that someone has said, like someone's talking about universes beyond and genuinely gets upset with something that is frustrating, it is my job as the person who hosts the stream to moderate. If a person wants to share their feelings, there's nothing wrong with doing that on stream. And in a kind of weird way, it's like very humanizing for people to get upset. But the thing is that you have to moderate anger. You have to moderate emotionalness. You don't want people cussing each other out. That's not helpful. So what
Sure.
I like to do is if someone shares an emotion, right? We see how that emotion is shared and we see how everyone reacts and we decide in that moment how to do it. For me, it's like, is that person passionate or is that person upset? And this can show up in a lot of myriad ways. If a person is using like negative language and this person is kind of talking down to whoever they're speaking to, that is a kind of shut down situation. I will immediately shut it down. It's not, if you're disparaging another person on stream, I don't really care the reason. Even if you're right about something, we're not gonna argue that way. If someone's wrong, call them out. Don't make them feel bad. So what I will tend to do is that if someone says something nasty to someone else, I will name that it's nasty. I think that it's the safest way to handle and de-escalate is not to say you did a bad thing, but simply name that it was nasty. So if someone says, your decks are all am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, let it fly.
Okay. Yeah. It if someone says all your decks are fucked up and I don't like playing against you, I would immediately say after that, you can dislike the deck, but you don't have to speak to them that way. It's a little mean.
Sure.
Right? You would name it. Now, if that person becomes combative, don't argue there. You want to preserve the other person who's on the other side of this confrontation as much as you want to address the situation. And some people don't want to be in an argument on stream online. They just don't want to do that. So
Sure.
a lot of times de-escalating is like, that's not nice. And the other person becomes argumentative. Let the conversation drop if that's what it needs to do. Address and drop. I think that after you drop it, if they keep mumbling, then I would cut the stream. I would literally be like, you know what? I think that you've behaved improperly. This stream is not important to me than the livelihood of the person sitting across from me. So I'm just going to end the stream here. Sorry, people, the show's over, right? If it is the sort of thing where they combat and they drop it and we can move on, then afterwards the stream will have an after stream conversation. Like what's going on, like actually name and have like a deconstruction of it later. And sometimes that happens privately. It doesn't have to happen in like a forum after the stream,
Sure.
right? It can happen privately. Like I know that I had to speak to someone privately after a stream and I was like, "Hey, you did X. I think it made someone else uncomfortable." And they were very apologetic. They were like, "Thank you so much for not bringing it up on stream and thank you so much for talking to me about it because that was not my intention. I will apologize to them." And they did. And it was cool. Everything was fine. Um but sometimes you have to address it. You have to name and have consequences for stuff in person because you don't want to be a doormat. You can't protect people if you're a doormat.
Sure. Good advice.
Okay. Let me see here. This is something that I had to learn gradually. Some people just don't like each other. And that's okay. I think that there's nothing personal about disliking another human being, but it's important to let people know who's going to be on your stream before it happens. I try to get that out. Like, one of the problems is that communication is tough along blue sky lines where people won't get back to you enough. And I usually confirm people like on Monday before my stream on Tuesday. And then I let people know who's going to be on the stream because I've solidified who's going to be on the stream. And sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes someone drops out last minute and you find a fill and the two fills don't get along. Right. Um, the important thing is to just plan around it. You just have to in advance do your best. If these two people don't jive, most people are very sensible. People are not going to bring their petty squabbles to your event, usually. but like we said before, if there does become a conflict, you can refer to some of the steps that I said before, right? Confrontation, if it's basically aggressive towards a person, and then dropping it and then talking about it after stream. This also works if people are um, arguing and they clash in some way. This we sort of addressed as well. It just names that you are the owner of the stream, you are its protector. You have to address things as they become problems first. Don't let players fully argue on stream. If disagreements become heightened, offer a medium ground of opinion. If there's no good medium ground, end the conversation. Basically, exactly what I said before. Um, I think that this is so important, and I don't know if a lot of people discuss it. Uh, this is just in general. Like, even if you are in person, some people are different about their expectations in conversations. Some people talk a lot more than others. Some people like to wait for their turn in conversations, and other people do not. It is very important that if someone crosses a boundary for someone else, that you name that. And it doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be confrontational. If someone is talking over another person consistently and the other person is getting frustrated, as the moderator of the conversation, say, hey, the other person is trying to talk. How about we give them a second to finish their thoughts, and then you can jump back in. And I've done this many times with like social situations in person and social situations on stream. It's just like, you just got to jump in and say, hey, give the other person a chance. And then you extend that respect to both people. If the other person starts jumping in, right, like they're both interrupting each other, you have to say, let person A talk, and then after, let person B talk. Don't interrupt. And but if people interrupt each other and they feel comfortable with that, also, you don't necessarily have to moderate it. It's only if you see that frustration level where a person is like, displaying some emotional signs of distress, which is actually a great segue to some of the signs of emotional distress. You see that people are puffing their cheeks or biting their lip. You see that a person is rolling their eyes or sighing often. These are signs of distress. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily mad or necessarily angry or frustrated or wanting to end a conversation, but these are just signs of distress. It means that the conversation is heading in a direction that is going to be emotionally taxing. So a person might be like, I'm frustrated because I'm being interrupted, not because I don't want to have this conversation. Another person might be frustrated because it's the subject of the topic is like frustrating to them. It could be a lot of different things. Some people might just feel uncomfortable with the context of the conversation. Like, I know like there is a huge population of trans people in the magic space, and a lot of people who are not trans in the space and don't understand trans issues, right? And sometimes conversations for trans people can be uncomfortable because of the lack of knowledge and the lack of sensitivity around certain topics, right? And might become frustrated in a conversation with someone who is being unknowingly but definitely offensive. And it's your role as a person to be educated about the people you have on. If that person has not given you something, like said to you, like, I don't want to talk about this, you still, as a person, should be investigating. If you want to host people, you have to understand people. You have to keep your ear to the ground when it comes to social issues in general, especially if you're with a demographic of person. Obviously, you're not going to know every trigger. You're not going to know every minutia. You're not going to know every microaggression. You're not even going to be able to point out them, right, necessarily, because you are not a part of that community. But you should at least make it your business to learn when you have an opportunity. I think a lot of people, like I said, in the Magic community are very passive aggressive or like avoidant. And I think that is understandable. Not everyone is confrontational. But I think that if you are hosting a stream, it's important for you to hold people accountable. Whether it is confrontationally in the moment or later in a message, you still have to hold people accountable. If someone is consistently making questionable remarks, like using slurs that they don't know are slurs on your stream, and you want to set an expectation, you named it in the stream, you named it, and it kept happening, you have to be like, you need to correct this behavior or a consequence will happen. You will no longer be welcome on my stream. I think a lot of times people get frustrated with something that someone has done and hasn't named to them that it was a problem and then fully excommunicate them. This is very typical in the Magic community. It is not a healthy way to show consequences. I was a teacher for 8 years. You can't just punish a kid. You have to say, don't do this. This particular behavior is bad. If you do it again, then there will be a consequence, because then they're informed about what they're being punished for. And if they make it is intentional at that point, even if they do it by mistake, it's still something worthy of consequence because they knew what they were doing. Um,
That's a good point. I think a little bit of prevention, some preparation, and addressing things in Rule Zero will really go a long way in preventing issues, during the stream. A good
Absolutely.
example, is the pronoun discussion on our server. Typically, that's part of our Rule Zero, where everyone will do a brief introduction and talk about what their preferred pronouns are. So, and that way everyone knows, and can't you can't claim ignorance, right?
Yeah, and I think also I'm very understanding to people who like say pronoun based on identification of the person is new to them. Most people are like, pronouns are things that I assign people, not people assign themselves, right? I've understood that there are people who believe this or have like the conceived knowledge of this and are learning, right? They still have bad habits, but they're learning. I think it's so important to put on display people's pronouns, because sometimes people need visual aids. Like I said, I was a teacher for 8 years. Not every kid learns when you talk. Not every kid learns when they read. Not every kid learns when they do. You have to give them all three all the time so they all have an opportunity to learn. So I, on my stream, when people are filling out their spell table, I'm like, I need your name. I need your pronouns in next to your commander. I need those two things because I want people to have a visual representation. If they're like, I can't remember what this person's pronouns are, just look above their name. You can see what it is if you forget. And if you are struggling, right, like you can use that as a crutch. You can go back to it.
It's good advice.
Um, let's see here. Most of the time, I think that confrontation doesn't usually happen, but when it does happen, people are surprised by it. I'm not saying that the community in general is like particularly aggressive. I don't think a lot of fights happen on stream. I don't think a lot of fights happen in person games either. But I do believe people do have conflicts often and are unable to address them. And I think that this is the topic of salt. Um, um, People need emotional space. It is 100% valid for any person to have any emotion. I stand by this. Any emotion that you have is valid. Anger, frustration, like any emotion that you have is valid. It's how you act about that emotion that I will hold you accountable to. I think that like if someone is angry about a game or salting out, they should be allowed to express their emotions in an effective way. I've met so many people who when they salt out, they want to scoop. And a lot of people are like mad that they want to scoop. They want to exodus from the game. Why would you stop them from exiting an unpleasant experience? It might screw with the game a little bit, but at the end of the day, that person is upset and their emotions are more important than whether or not you get to combo off. So, like, I know I play Tivit. When a player scoops, my deck is worse. I know. I literally understand. But at the end of the day, if someone is like, I'm feeling salty, I would like to take a break or I need like 5 minutes. Like personally, when I salt out, I'm like, give me 2 seconds. I need to get like a drink or something. I need to like walk away. I need to walk away from the situation to give myself some space. And sometimes a person might just breathe heavy or, cuss under their breath. As long as they're not directing it at a person, this is something that I used to say when I was a teacher with my students. It's okay to cuss, don't cuss someone out, right? It's okay to be upset, but do not direct that at another person. And just because you're not saying you doesn't mean you're not directing it at a person. We're subtle enough to understand that if you don't say, if you say under your mouth, under your breath, bitch, you're talking about a person. I know, even if you didn't say you, bitch, I know you're talking about me, right? Like the point is that obviously you should be allowed to express emotion. Like you can get upset. The thing is that how you direct it is so important, and that is an expectation you should be setting with people during stream and during games. And you don't necessarily like. I think the best thing to do is to name it early. But if let's say you forget, like you're just like you've got 10 streams back to back, you just literally just forgot, like you've been streaming all day and you forget to name it. You can also name it in the moment. Someone's getting frustrated, you can and they cuss someone out. You can just say, hey, I know you're upset, but don't treat another person like that. If you need a break, go ahead and take it. Right? If you need 10 minutes to decompress, right? Take the 10 minutes you need for decompression. Um um yeah, sometimes it's the game, sometimes it's something else. Like I'll be real with you. I played a game 2 days ago or yesterday. I don't remember. I was so mad. I literally left the game very, very angry. And it was like a personal thing. It had nothing to do with directing energy at another person. I don't think anyone had done anything wrong. I was just very angry that something happened that I didn't like. So I was literally running around the house, like cussing out, getting angry. But during the stream while it was happening, I didn't cuss anyone out. I was just like, I'm upset. I'm going to deflate. I'm going to go get up. I'm going to say, hey, I need a break. I need to go get a snack. One of my posts on Blue Sky was like very popular at one point where I said, I'm salting out because I need to go get a snack. Like I will say I need a break. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those grab the pillow and scream into it type of moments. Get it out of your system, then move on. You know.
Exactly. And the thing is that it's healthy to feel the emotion, right? Like I will always name that emotions are healthy for you. It's like deeply important for you to feel an emotion, even if you are not productive with it. You don't have to cuss someone out, but you can get mad. You can go into your room and scream. These things are healthy. Okay. After game chats, um, sometimes you don't get to talk about the thing in the stream. It is important to decompress. Sometimes I will tell a person, I'll say something in a stream, like personally in a stream, and I don't feel like it's handled. And I have like thought it over as the stream is going on, and I need to say something else. I remember I was playing on a stream with Joe Kilcar, and he was playing a deck and he had named that the deck was a certain bracket and I didn't agree. I named it during the game. I said that I think this deck is a lot stronger, but there was nothing wrong with that, right? Like sometimes we mismanage the strength of our deck. Sometimes we're playing in higher power pods and we just don't know how strong our deck is. And sometimes the deck just pops off. It's not normally that strong, right? Like it's a lot of factors. So when I was playing with him, I said like 2 or 3 times that I was like, this deck is really strong. As I was going through the stream, I was like, maybe I'm harping on this too much. Maybe I've talked about it too much. Maybe I brought it up too many times and it might have made Joe uncomfortable. So at the end of the stream, I said to him, oh, I'm so sorry if I was harping on that. I wasn't trying to like be passive aggressive. I just I thought it was significantly impactful to the game, so I kept mentioning it, but maybe I mentioned it too much, so I'm sorry. And he was like, no, 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 I didn't have any issue with it. And later on, like a week later, he sent me like a message saying, oh, I'm so sorry that I played that deck on stream. I have since played it many more times, and that was a consistent game for it. It is very strong with some additions that I had recently made, and I shouldn't have played it on that stream. I'm so sorry. I was like, dude, you didn't know. Right. And, but I appreciate you reaching out to me. And I think that these after game chats, no matter how after the game chats, are really important, and you should encourage them. Like, after stream, I will ask everyone okay. Anything anyone want to say? Did you enjoy the game? Right? These are things that I need people to like name. They don't have to, really. But most times it depends on how late it is. Sometimes it's really late and I just need to get to bed. But a lot of times I want to know if people at least enjoyed the game, right? I want to know if they're happy. And sometimes a person won't name it in a group setting. They might name it later. They might say that. And I think that this is important to the maintenance of your players and keeping them happy, is just checking in, like a survey after the game. How happy are you, you know? Um and that is my PowerPoint. We will open up to questions.
All right. If you have any questions, go ahead and either put them in the chat, or you could just simply put I have a question in the chat, and I can invite you to speak. Um, so we'll go ahead and turn it over to the audience.
I planned for 30 minutes and I hit 30 minutes like exactly on the nose.
You
It's crazy.
you were absolutely perfect. Um, let's see. So, Cass, let me ask you, like, do you have any, I guess, mental exercises or prep that you do like prior to a stream to make sure that you're kind of like in the right mindset going into a game?
Yeah, I think part of my prep is actually just naming if I'm in a bad mood. Sometimes I get into a stream and I'm like, I just got some really bad news on something in my family or whatever. If I'm a little bit weird during the stream, I'm sorry. I have many times told people this. It's never become a problem. I usually compartmentalize pretty well, but I still name that because maybe I'll salt out a little bit harder. So like part of my routine to get into my headspace is that conversation, that rule zero conversation about I'm in a bad mood. I'm on stream because a lot of people are expecting this. I made a commitment to something and I would like to hold to that commitment, but I'm not actually in the best mood. Another thing that I do is like, even now I have my little drink. I like to have something that brings me joy around me. And I really like Coke Zeros. I think they're so good. Even when I'm trying to cut back on soda and I want to drink more water, I will, if I'm on a stream, I will get a Coke every single time. It's part of my routine. I need to have like a little drink with me so that if I start to get frustrated in a game, I have a little thing that makes me happy. Some people might have, like a favorite set of dice with them, or a favorite play mat, or play a favorite deck. I know that I believe, I don't quote me on this, but I believe Benji has told me that certain decks he can play when he's in a bad mood better than when he's in a good mood. And that's Benji the Brewer. I think he told me this. And I was just like, you know what? I do have decks that I pilot better when I'm angry than when I'm happy. So that's another thing, like deck selection. Pick a deck that actually makes you feel good for the mood that you're in. And a lot of us build so many different decks that there's like variety on like what you can play. If you're in a bad mood, maybe don't play that stack stack. Or maybe do. Maybe that's what'll bring you joy.
Um, I see a couple audience members are typing in the chat. Red Shirt Down just says, thanks for sharing your time tonight. They are a bit of a data goblin. When you mentioned doing a rule zero, what do you think about asking it a bit more formally on a document? So essentially have it as a fillable document, just to get the laydown before even setting up a stream.
I think I'm not against this. The thing is like I guess the logistics of it might be a little technical because like stuff like general stuff like pronouns and stuff like that, like stuff that's an easy question to answer that might induce salt proactively. um yes, I would say is a good fillable. Sometimes people's salt is not that clear and it's interpersonal. Sometimes a person is like, I don't like this kind of interaction in a game, and that might be a little bit taxing for a spreadsheet. But I guess like I use Google Sheets. I think it's called Google Sheets. No, not Google Sheets. Google Forms. And I have people fill stuff out. I've never put a rule zero conversation in there because usually I have it before my stream anyways. But I'm not against it. I think it's a good idea.
I think it's probably a good starting point to kind of have some information going in. I will probably add that the one thing you do miss in the form is the feedback. The
Yeah.
real life feedback that you get from the players. So
Yeah.
I would say that may be a good tool to supplement like a traditional rule zero.
And also, sometimes it's interpersonal that the rule zero conversation becomes relevant because sometimes, as much as you need to fill it out in the form, everyone else at the table needs to know too. So it kind of becomes important for a person to name their rule zero expectations in the rule zero conversation with other people, so that they can have input or understand that this is something that a person doesn't prefer. It's essential to me to know, but it's also important for all the other players to know as well. If I'm like, I don't want to play against a braids deck, that's important for everyone else to know as much as me.
Um, Cass, as a creator, you maintain a busy schedule. A lot of creators have day jobs on top of their content creation. Um, how much can burnout play a role in heightened emotions on screen? Is that something that people should generally be aware of? Not only for themselves but also for guests that may be on their channels.
That's such a good point. I don't know if you guys follow Hobbs Q, but he does Better Days MTG, along with the other Ryan Nichols, Tron is bad. Um, they talk about the mental health side of Magic. We all do content creation on the side. Most of us are not doing it full time. Um, we have to go to work, we have to come home, and then we do this content creation out of love. It does not mean that it isn't taxing. I have on many occasions been completely emotionally blown out by how much I have taken on in this space. I like even this talk I had to reschedule because I had a lot of mental health stuff going on. I was in between doctors, in between medications. And a lot of people who know me know that I'm disabled. I have a very severe mental illness, which is schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar 1, which is like very serious words that often don't lead to people actually knowing my condition. A lot of people are very debilitated by this condition. I'm lucky that I can still do a lot of stuff for myself, as of right now. But burnout is so real. I have been like, I cannot talk to people about emotions because I cannot manage my emotions right now.
Sure.
I am literally like, on many times, I'm like, I'm in such a turbulent mood that I have to cancel this stream. I'm in such a turbulent mood, I cannot make this event. Um, I I think that a lot of times, at least in terms of burnout, people need to make grace with themselves. Um, I know that we live in the United States, which is heavily capitalistic and this kind of grind culture that the only way you'll be successful is if you burn yourself out doing the most all the time. And I'm not saying that I'm free from this, but it is not healthy. You don't always have to be on go, 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 doing everything all the time. If you can do it, right, and you enjoy doing it, yeah, do it. But if you need space and time, you need to take it because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. We are not going to get successful over the course of a year, or we're not going to be, you know, game nights overnight no matter how much we grind. We need to be doing this for years, and the only way you'll survive is if you take those moments to protect your peace and protect yourself. You need to take breaks, and like burnout affects emotions in streams constantly. We see people who are just having a bad fucking day and they get on stream and they get stacks out of the game. I've seen so many people who are not content creators get pissed off. I played a game. It was very illuminating to me because over the course of my life, my opinion of this interaction changed. A long time ago, I want to say 2021, I was playing Magic at an LGS, and there was a guy playing Mizzix Ignanimous Counterspell Typal, and there was another guy playing a Kalia the Vast deck. I was playing some bullshit that was unplayable and awful, and I was playing with a fourth player. We were just playing, and it was a Saturday night, and it was the first game of the night because they would do rounds. And basically, he would cast Kalia, and the other guy would counter it. He would play Kalia, the other guy would remove it with like Pongify. And this kind of went on over the course of the game, right? And at some point, the Kalia player said, "Are you just going to keep removing my commander?" And the Mizzix player said, "Well, Kalia cannot attack. If she attacks, and she becomes really oppressive, and there's nothing I can do about her after she puts pieces out," which is very valid.
Yeah.
But being mad that your commander has been removed 7 times is also valid. Um, um, so at the time when I heard this conversation, I agreed with the Mizzix player. I was like, yeah, you can't let Kalia go off, right? I was just like, this is just necessary. But as time went on, I started to agree with the Kalia player, right? I was like, it is not, I don't want to go through, like, because at the end, the Kalia player ended up scooping up his cards, picking up his playmat, and leaving the building. He didn't even play other rounds. He went home.
Sure.
And I always thought that this was an overreaction at the time. I was like, come on, it's just a game. But the thing is like, if you've got a lot of stuff going on and the one thing that you're looking forward to is playing like a game of Magic, right? A commander game, and you get blown out that way, you don't get to play your deck, you don't get to do anything. It's the kind of thing that will set anyone off. Right? Imagine coming home after a long day at work and you just want dinner and all the food in your fridge is spoiled, so you don't get to eat. You would be mad,
Sure.
right? Like, so I don't know, when it comes to burnout, like a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff, and we just need to be considerate of that. Sometimes we just need to give people grace. Sometimes they're going to crash out and say stuff, and you're going to have to be like, I totally understand. You're just having a bad day. But still, we have to hold people accountable to their actions too, right? Like, you have to be like, okay, I know you're having a bad day, but don't like cuss random people out, you know?
Sure. So yeah, with burnout, there's the old saying, you can't pour from an empty pitcher, right? And so
Yeah.
it's really important to take care of yourself. You use this presentation as an example. As a host, I'm more concerned about the well being of our panelists. I'm not going to try to move forward if your thoughts aren't in it, right? You're not mentally in it. And I don't think you're putting a good product out there. So
Yeah.
same thing with your stream. Like at the end of the day, you're trying to entertain folks, right? And you have to be in a good mindset to do that. So
Yeah, you have to take care of yourself so that you can enjoy what you're doing so other people enjoy you. And I feel like you've given me a ton of grace, Ryan, with this, because I didn't even reach out to you that I was canceling. I just posted on Blue Sky that a lot of bad things had happened and my mental health wasn't good. And you reached out to me saying like, do you want to reschedule? And I was just like, you know what? I normally would have pushed through this. I would have forced myself to do this panel, but giving me this grace was exactly what I needed. And I ended up having a like a horrible week. That was like I ended up canceling a bunch of
I
other
remember.
streams. I just ended up taking a bunch of time for myself because I was just going through a lot of mental health trouble. It eventually got solved, right? Like I got on the right kind of medication, but it was a tough time. So I was just like, yeah, don't trust me. Like I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I am doing very well for myself as a creator that started in December. And I do a lot of stuff because I like doing a lot of stuff. But that is not the reason I'm successful. I think it's really because I take the time to be in a good mood when I talk to people. And you can't be in a good mood if you just feel bad, you know? Like you gotta just take care of yourself, take care of your body, your mind, all that stuff. And if that means not being on streams constantly, that means not being on streams constantly.
So we got a comment from Mankey, and I'm gonna paraphrase, but essentially, they had mentioned that they had repeatedly been thrown off because something happens during their day when they schedule a stream, they decide to cancel, or something comes up that affects them in a negative way. They like the idea of having something within reach that makes you happy, to kind of help you through. So they wanted to thank you for that tip. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. Your table setup too, like when you're playing on stream, if it's stream, like having your table set up is like I have like I'll show you right now. Like I've got this gift that I got from my friend. They mailed it to me for my birthday and I love looking at it. I've got Hello Kitty sitting in front of me too. I've got my little drink. I've got my pretty dice sitting in front of me. It doesn't have to just be one thing. You can do all that. You got to decorate your space.
all right. Well, we'll do a last call for questions here, and we'll give it a minute. Um, Mankey says, I need to look into doing that more for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
We appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
Um, Cass, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about maybe some things that you have coming up, or where folks can find you, where you're going to be in the future, and then if any other questions pop up, we can go ahead and address those.
Yeah, absolutely. So some stuff that I have coming up is I write articles for EDH Rec every week. I actually got inspired for an article that I'm going to write in a probably not this week coming, but next week, that is literally about salt. I want to discuss how people interact with saltiness in a game and what's appropriate and how we should be discussing it. And that's something that I'm really interested in writing. I'll probably write it this week, but it comes out the week after I read it. So look out for that. The article that I had come out on Monday is about different building styles. I will always talk about Rule Zero conversations in every article that I write because I write articles about the social aspect of Commander. I think that the bracket system is WotC's attempt to kind of cull what is the biggest deterrent from people playing the game, which is that the people that they play with make them upset. And it has a lot to do with like how people match make, but I think that it's so much more than that. It's how you make other people feel and how people make you feel. Um, so I have an article coming out soon that's about deck building in which I discuss the pros and cons of certain archetypes of deck building. So stuff like um being a Johnny, some people who like power and flavor, and then a Spike, a person who's like the best line, the best cards, or a Timmy who's just like big spells, or a Vorthos who's like, I don't care about winning this game, I care about telling you about the art. Or about a Melvin who's the kind of person who's like, I just want to see weird stuff happen. So I'm going to play Deadpool multiple times on my turn to see weird interactions, and they have pros and cons. Playing against them is not a joy with all of them, right? It depends on what kind of person you are and how you're motivated by playing. So that's an article I have coming up. I also have Magic Con Atlanta coming up. where I am a featured creator. I have a meet and greet in Atlanta Sunday at, I think it is 12:30 or 2:30. I don't remember. I think it's 12:30. Um, some other stuff that I've got coming up is I've got some things in the works that I'm going to be on some big shows. I've got Tabletop Jocks coming up in September, so look out for that. It was the Juneteenth stream. I've got 2 episodes. I think one is coming out in September, one's coming out maybe later on. But I played Zimone in that, Ryan, so you'll be very proud.
Oh, awesome.
I built that deck for Joe. I saw him play other decks, and I was like, I need to build a very oppressive, very strong, very good deck, and I built that for him.
Did you put the Praetors
I
in?
saw, I did. I put Vorin Klex and 2 Jin-Gitaxiuses. And now that deck is like a boogeyman in most of my play pods. They're like, oh, I don't really want to play against Vorin Klex and Jin-Gitaxius. I was like, I'll put it back in the box. It's okay. I don't need to play it.
I love that deck.
But yeah, me too. But that's what I've got going on and coming up. Yeah, if you want to catch my stuff, I post every day on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I post on Blue Sky usually pretty regularly, and my articles come out on EDH Rec once a week. So if you want to look out for that.
Sounds great. And I'll definitely be looking out for that Salt article as a follow up to this presentation. We'll go ahead and post that in the Tabletop Talks Discord for y'all to enjoy. Next week we will be following this up with Drew from the Show and Tell podcast. He's going to be talking to us a little bit about photography. You'll see him usually at Magic Cons and various events, taking pictures. Excellent photographer. Has worked with a lot of great cosplayers, including Jane. Our co-host here. So that'll be a great one if you're at all interested in photography. So. Cass, thank you so much. I appreciate you sitting down with us. You absolutely killed it tonight. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I thank you all the people who came out to ask questions and to just listen. I appreciate you guys so much, and keep making content. I think that content creation is one of the good things of the internet. I think that it lets us connect with lots of diverse and different opinions, and that's healthy for growth in all of us.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.
Ryan.